African government that blew off the ANC headquarters in London. And guess what? Margaret Thatcher came in to protect and provide security to those they had declared as a terrorist organization. The ANC, Margaret Thatcher was forced to provide protection to those they have declared as a terrorist organization. The ANC, Thabot Mbeki, living in London. The ANC leaders, Thabot Mbeki, was provide protection and security in London because which government became a terrorist? The South African government. So a genuine people will always supersede for those who fight. The genuine people that fight for legitimacy will always supersede those who are stood against illegitimacy. Let's look at the United States. When the people of the United States asked the British government, no taxation without a representative. No taxation without a representative. United States was a colonial territory of the British government. And the people say, no, we don't have an elected officials in the British Parliament. Why should there be our territory be recognized as a British territory when we don't have a representative? That was the philosophy of this nation. It was the 13th state that stood up and said no to Britain. The mighty navy of Britain never succeeded to conquer United States. And so too, the mighty navy will never conquer a people that are fighting for a distinctive freedom. Freedom to life, freedom to liberty and equality. I borrowed this from the United States philosophy. Fellow people of Southern Cameroon, fellow people of Ambazonia, I want to remind us that when the South African government blew off the ANC in London, when the South African government blew off the ANC in London, the British government were obligated to provide security for the ANC, the government that the British government had earlier declared a terrorist. So the people that stood for freedom will always be described and called terrorists, just as La Republique jumped up and described the people of Southern Cameroon as a terrorist. But today, a British government has issued a letter recognizing Article 1608 SV. It is essential. It is essential. It is imperative that Article 1608 is an essential document that our people has been downgraded to what is now called a Northwest and Southwest. That is the conquer of a neighboring country and ignore the fundamental value of the people of Southern Cameroon. But Margaret Thatcher began to provide when the spirit of the Lord stands against the people that are standing up for freedom. When the spirit of the people that are stood up for freedom, no matter whatever it is, they will follow the people's revelation. Let's look. Margaret Thatcher has initially endorsed and accepted that the South African ANC was a terrorist organization, but were bound to provide protection and security for Thabot Mbeki, the ANC officials who were based in London, because South Africa blew the headquarters of the ANC. But I am here to remind the people of Southern Cameroon that we shouldn't be afraid of anything. Guess what? When those time and the moment are approaching, when the time and moment is approaching, when the people will be confused and they will stood up and will not recognize, guess what? The person that was enforcing the person that was enforcing the apartheid regime in South Africa, guess what? He was picked up by a stroke. He was picked up by a stroke. For those who doesn't know what is a stroke is a disease that hit the blood vessels of your brain or whatever. So, Pete Botha, that was the South African president, he was hit by a stroke. When he was hit by a stroke, guess what happened? F.W. de Klerk became the next president of South Africa. Because Peter Botha was the people of the ancient time. He did not recognize that the people of South Africa should have the liberty and freedom. Despite the fact that Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, is providing protection to those leaders they have declared as unwanted. But now they are obligated to provide protection for the leaders of the apartheid. When stroke hit those individuals that are deprived of their liberty, and guess what happened? Frederick de Klerk. Frederick de Klerk was elected the next president. Frederick de Klerk became the next president of South Africa. And guess what? He was obligated to release Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela became the person that broke the chain of control in South Africa. If Nelson Mandela became the person that broke the chain of control in South Africa, then it is the moment for the people of Southern Cameroon to tell the Prime Minister Boris Johnson to break the chain. It is the moment for the people of Southern Cameroon and rise and tell the Prime Minister of Great Britain, take example of Margaret Thatcher and break the chain that you have imposed upon the people of Southern Cameroon. The people of Southern Cameroon are distinctive people. They will not succumb to the chain of the South Africa that has imposed upon apartheid for several years. We are not going to go through this apartheid in South Africa, but we are letting them to know that we are going to let Boris Johnson break the chain that they've imposed. Our people, we will not relentlessly see this continue. Let's fight. Let's fight. Every single land republic in Southern Cameroon is a threat to the progress of the people of Southern Cameroon. At this moment, it's not the moment to condole with La Republic. It is not the moment. The land belongs to the people of Southern Cameroon. Southern Cameroon does not belong to La Republic. Let La Republic recognize their territorial integrity where it was voted in 1960, and let the people of Southern Cameroon recognize their own territory. And we can live in a good neighborliness. We can live in a good neighborliness. We can live in a good neighborliness if La Republic recognize their own territorial integrity. In 1960, when the vote was conducted, Southern Cameroon was not part of La Republic. And today, we are asking Boris Johnson, let's respect the territorial integrity of Southern Cameroon. Let's respect the territorial integrity of Southern Cameroon, just as Margaret Thatcher recognized South Africa must live together, not apart, as initially thought. So there is two distinctive confusion that one seems to believe. The distinctive future is that while the South Africa are people of different entity, Southern Cameroon are people of two separate entities. You have Southern Cameroon, which is sovereign nations that were deprived of their privilege to exist. Article 1608 XV of the United Nations should have been tampered with by La République du Cameroon. Article 1514 XV of the United Nations shouldn't have been tampered by the Great British government. And so today, let's rise as one people. Let's rise, the people of Southern Cameroon. Let's rise. Let's rise and support our ground. Those who stood up, we, the people of Southern Cameroon, has taken arms. They're taking arms not because they hope so, but they're taking arms because of the severe depressed that La République du Cameroon has depressed our people, killing our brothers and sisters indiscriminately, killing our mothers indiscriminately, raping our children, raping girls, even children that have just delivered their children and just stepped out to buy food. On their way home, they just found themselves being raped by the military of La République du Cameroon. And fellow brothers and sisters, we all just keep quiet and ignore. There are many people within our own community. Those are the minority. There are certain individuals. Those, they say they attend one of the so-called highest school, their boarding school. Their parents happen to be working in La République. They turn to ignore this call for freedom. I remember when I called one person, he said, oh, you want to talk about Ambazonia? Because the children happen to be one of those influenced in La République. They've worked there. They've been the ministers. And today when you call them, they say, oh, you want to talk about Ambazonia? Fellow brothers and sisters, this is not about Ambazonia. This is about a sovereign nation that's been deprived. It's not about your father who happened to be a minister. Because you were being used as a stewardship. You are being used as a stewardship for La République du Cameroon. And that is why I am reminding our fellow brothers and sisters, let's rise at both. Let's rise. Let's stand together. We can conquer. We can defeat the enemy. I see many people fighting among themselves. I see many of us fighting among ourselves. This is not a moment to fighting. This is a moment of collaboration. This is the moment of collaboration. Because when we collaborate, the enemy is under duress. If we collaborate, call your brother and tell him, so I am sorry. And so how can we work together? Because working together is the best that we can overcome La République du Cameroon. But we choose to fight among ourselves, then we are not helping one another. We are not helping one another. So collaboration is the key for us to overcome the enemy. If the British government understand that we are more unified than ever before, then the British government will have no obligation to recognize us as people. The United States will have no obligation to recognize us as people. The French government will have no obligation